So, do you think we should have a professional intro?
Yeah, this is supposed to be our professional intro.
Recording progress. I love that. I love the fact that Zoom made how many billions during lockdown and didn't even think to get Morgan Freeman to do that voice.
Yeah, that would be completely unoriginal, though. Let's get Morgan Freeman to do it.
Oh, but Morgan Freeman is just like.
Got a great voice.
So who would you have then?
I've never really considered the question. I'm not that bothered, mate.
It's an important question. It's an important question. But I want you to meditate on that one. But you can do
Joe
it.
Pesci.
Joe Pesci. Oh, that would
talking
be...
like he was in Goodfellas or something.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not what we were going to talk about today. We were going to drop a word in, weren't we? And then just chat about a word for roughly 20 minutes. He says, looking to see if he's going to put a timer on because he knows what we can talk like. I'm going to throw a word in. I'm going to throw the word authenticity in the mix.
Ooh, what does it
mean? And then let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's talk about authenticity.
Authenticity is like one of those words. I mean, all right, I use authenticity. Working with clients, one of the pillars that I talk about is authenticity. And I like the word. I think the word is a beautiful word. I think the problem is it's overused. Too many people use it and probably don't understand what it means. So I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were talking about how to be your authentic self, and it's phrases like that which they make me kind of sick in my mouth, have to swallow it down. But I get it. I get the premise of it. You know, being yourself, whatever that is. And guy was on the podcast was talking about how there are some studies which show that when you are authentic, when you show up as you, that actually increases your life, increases your life expectancy. And I'm like, right, I'm all over that. But I need to go back and have a look at the studies. But quite simply, I look at authenticity as, for me, it's understanding your values and living through those values every day. What's important to you? How do you express yourself to the world? How do you see the world, and what choices do you make? Very clearly aligned with who you are. Mm. And then I read something, going off on a bit of a monologue here, but I read Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No. Thought that was really interesting because he talks about authenticity from a different place. He talks about it as in terms of childhood. And I'm probably going to butcher this, and anyone who's read it and studied the text will message me and say, that was shit. Two things which I remember standing out for me is, one, for a child to be authentic, they need to be shown love, but also at the same time, they need to trust their gut and be able to express themselves. And that for me was a big revelation, because it comes back to values and it comes back to being able to express yourself. And there's so many places that goes, but that's kind of where my head is at with authenticity and the conversations I have with people I work with.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I kind of cringe a little bit of the word. And I admit, when I first decided to kind of step away from the NHS to do the speaking, I think if I went for a brief phase of referring to myself as an authenticity coach, whatever the fuck that is. Ooh. And now I look back at it and think, oh, but I think it was all about, for me, it was about kind of what you said about Gabor Mate, but like feeling like you could just be yourself. But I don't think that's that straightforward. And
yeah,
I used to think that you should just be able to be yourself 100% of the time. And initially, like, if people don't get that, then fuck them. But I'm not sure how useful that is, because I don't think it's, we can't just be who we are all the time, in, looking at it, as matter of fact as that. There are times where we have to adjust how we are. And I think about, when I think of authenticity, I think it's not always being ourselves, but can we move the needle enough where it doesn't feel like we're completely kind of running away from ourselves or being inauthentic too much? Because I like to swear, I like to do things I probably shouldn't do, but I know in certain clinical settings, for example, I can't. It's not form. I shouldn't. I can't really be like that. I have to refrain. how you act with your mates down the pub is going to be different. How you to show up to your young kids. You know, when we always change, and I think, and then it comes back to that values thing. I think you're right. It's about those values. What are they? And you adjust your presentation, your behaviour to the environment. But as long as you're within your values, I imagine, then that feels quite authentic. But I know a lot of people talk about authenticity now, but I wonder how. And one thing actually in the work we do, and especially on social media, people talk about brand, about who are you, who's your brand. And I don't know if you've ever watched South Park and in the latest series where they take the piss out of Harry and Meghan, and they just take the piss out of people's brand. And they said, I think, is it Carl or Stan said, why can't I just be me? Why do I have to have a brand? And I sometimes worry that in today's society, what we're thinking is authentic, isn't it? It's just fake. It's just like we're putting on this show for like people, and it's not really who we are. And I'm well aware of well-being influencers who will show you that everything's amazing. Oh, because I practice gratitude every day. I do this. But underneath, they're just like crumbling away. They're like, my life's shit. But they can't be seen to be, for whatever reason, that person who's vulnerable, who's weak, because from a well-being perspective, when we're looking to work with someone, to the layperson, they want to see someone who's got their shit together. They want to be absolutely certain that what the work they're going to be doing with this person is going to make them better. But I don't think that's authentic. And going a step further than that, do we now are we less authentic because we're always trying to be the best we can be? Ooh. When actually being authentic is realizing that actually I fucking don't have a clue most of the time, and I'm just doing my best. And sometimes a bit of a dick, sometimes I'm lovely, and and I try and navigate that through life. And that's what authentic or being really authentic is. Like, I don't believe, again, going back into it, like, I don't believe that these people who wake up every day and are smashing their morning routines and doing their goals. I think that's a lie. I really do. Because if we know how our physiology works, unless you are getting ideal rest, recuperation, stuff like that, unless you're not human, we know that sometimes things happen in your life, they come out of nowhere. You're like thrown a curveball and someone gets sick or something happens and you can't do those things.
Yeah.
So I wonder, in a world that talks about authenticity, are people less authentic than they've ever been?
Yeah, that's a really big question. I think for me, listening to you speak, there's a distinction which comes up. One is doing authenticity, and one is being authenticity or being authentic. And I think we're very good on social media at doing authenticity. So we've all got a story about where we've come from and what happened. We've all got things which have gone on in our life, which at some point have knocked us off this path of being ourselves for whatever reason. We've had to adjust, we've had to adapt to deal with the life kind of things. I think for me, it feels like people are really craving to come back to this central core of who they are, but it's being overly complicated. And I think for me as well, this fits into identity. You know, my identity changes on a regular basis, and it changes because it has to change. You know, I had dinner with my mum and dad last night. I played the son. My identity and my role has changed over the years because as they've got older, they need me to be a different person, and that's fine. There's how I am with my kids, and as they've got older, I've been able to, I suppose, be more myself, or at least show more of that. I've got the people who I used to work with. I've got the people who I see in my business and my clients. I know that I'm much happier when I'm more aligned with my core values and who I am. But what's interesting is it's being okay with knowing that actually there are some times where I need to tone it down a little bit, or there are some times where I need to I can turn it up and be okay with that. But it's understanding that. And I think that's the thing, is that for me, is authenticity is this stream which runs through the whole lot, or this thread which runs through the whole lot. Sometimes you're closer to it and sometimes you're further away. It's when you're too far away.
Yeah.
And what is too far away? I don't know. For some people, they may be able to manage not being themselves and not being true to their values in the work that they do. because there's some other overriding thing which drives them in that direction and supports them on that. But for me, if I get too far away from my values, energetically, I'm all over the place. I'm tired. I can't manage those normal relationships. I feel drained all the time. And there's so many times I've seen that in my working life, in my relationships, personally, all of those things, where now it's actually just much easier to be myself. Although I'm still working it out. I'm still working it out from day to day.
I think we all are. And again, going back to Gabor Mate stuff, really, it's like, I know from my own experience, a lot of my suffering growing up was trying to be someone I was not, to fit in the environment I was growing up in. And I did Michelle's people profiling, Michelle Mills Porter's essence and clarity thing. And she won't mind me saying this, I fucking hate those kind of profiling things, because I don't trust them. But hers is amazing. So if anyone ever wants to do one, do one. But what it highlighted for me was that, for me, growing up, a lot of my issues around how I tried to impress my dad. He's my caregiver, and trying to basically make sure he approves of me, and that But what I found I was doing was actually I was trying to be someone I wasn't, to seek his approval rather than being myself. And it wasn't until I started doing my nurses training, I actually started becoming my own person. I actually found these moments where I was like, oh, I could be more me and express myself. And I wasn't like I was trying to be more me. I just noticed these things. It was just coming out of me. And I just felt, oh, I feel like this is nice. I feel like me. I feel like there's parts of me that have been waiting to come out, and it feels safe and it feels good. And it's really interesting, because I think that for many of us, I think it's so important to be authentic and to pursue authenticity, not from necessarily a perspective of always being yourself, but more like being true to who you are, like the values, like you said, true to who you are, what matters to you. And obviously, if people have been through abusive relationships growing up, kind of toxic households, some trauma, whatever you want to call it, growing up, it can be really hard to realize who you are in the context of all that. But when you actually go through that and actually realize, oh, actually, I can be this person, and this is okay if in the right environment. And it's about finding the right environment, really. And if you're fortunate enough to do that, to create that yourself, or naturally find yourself in that, and then that you'll notice that when you're around the right people.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It is hard. I think this is the thing. And again, when I look back at saying I was an authenticity coach, it was really about that. It's just like, what do you like? Who do you like to be? What do you like to do? And what would you like to do with your life, really, from what's inside your heart, as opposed to what you believe society should tell you. Yeah. Now, again, I cringe at the name authenticity coach. I think I just was looking for a catchphrase or a tagline or whatever you want to call it for who I was. But yeah, I think essentially it's living, like you say, Dave, like the values. What do you value in life? And that can be anything, and that's okay. There's no perfect value to have. If you like being important and significant, then pursue ways to do that. If you just like health, then pursue that. And it's because this is the thing. Again, talking about authenticity and always trying to be the best version of me. I think some of us will, in that message, will be given by coaches, gurus, whatever. I think we're told to pick values that we believe we should follow. And again, how often? Whereas actually, I've realized, and I've always come back to the same values, and they're probably bog stand for everyone, but health, freedom, and fun. That's it. Now, when I have those things, even if I'm not deemed to be successful, I feel good. I feel authentic to me. And it's actually when I'm trying to be the best version of me, trying to be that super successful resilience coach, mental health nurse, speaker, whatever I'm doing, I actually feel like I don't like it. I'm like, well, I don't enjoy it. I don't try and look at me. Yeah, I know all the answers. Well, I don't know all the answers. If you know me, I'll say I don't know all the answers. But I think how many people I actually think in the space we're in, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, I think there's more inauthenticity there than there is than people will ever claim there is, because I think most of these people, and I don't want to call them out and say they're bad people, but I think they're pretending to be someone they're not.
Look for the list in the show notes.
Visit their
profiles and tell them.
I don't know. I just seem to feel like, God, I'm going to sound like I'm arrogant here. I feel like I'm just seeing through the bullshit in the moment. I just have these moments of clarity where I'm like, if you was actually to look at yourself and be really honest, how authentic do you actually feel?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, what you're saying and what you probably feel is going to be different because obviously, like social media, we got to be seen to have it all figured out. I already mentioned this earlier, but I'm like, authenticity wasn't something that you massively spoke about 20 years, but now it's always spoken about. And I think we're probably less authentic than we used to be. Like, you want to see the most authentic people, you probably see your grandparents are probably the most authentic people because they just say it how it is. They say some bloody awful things. And it doesn't mean, cause the generation they grew up in, but they were just themselves most of the time. And yes, okay, they may have bottled down some emotions a lot of time.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that. We know that emotion suppression was massive in that generation. And the children from them as well, and probably in my generation as well, it's a big thing. But like generally, I think they were probably more authentic than us. Like we're always like fucking worrying about how to be, who we should be, how we should be around others. It's I don't think that's authenticity.
I think it's interesting about kind of the older folk. I suppose what my youngest always comes to me and he goes, "Okay, boomer," and it's like, I'm not a boomer, mate. I'm Gen X. Just stop it. But I think about my parents, and I think about my grandparents, and my grandparents are long deceased now, but I don't know whether it's so much for them about authenticity. I think there was more of a simplicity.
Yeah.
And their path was very much, this is the path. You are born, you go to school for a short amount of time. Chances are you go and work somewhere. When you're in your early teens, you'll probably meet a girl and go courting when you're in a dance hall somewhere, and you'll get married, have children, have grandchildren, off you go. It was much simpler. And I think the rules were clearer. Now, this ability to be whatever you want, wherever you want, with whoever you want, and label yourself in whatever way has made things probably a lot more complex. But I also think there's for me, there's a very interesting piece, which is for me to turn around and say that this is who I am, these are my values, is one thing. But for me to turn around and go, this is who I am, these are my values, and you must respect those at all cost, is a very different thing. A bit like swearing. If I've got, I don't know, who doesn't like, I mean, I love swearing. And that's been a big thing for me, is being able to be more myself and actually drop the word fuck out or put wank on a LinkedIn post, because actually that's how I would speak in real life. But you've almost got this bubble of, this is my bubble of where I can be me. And whether it's the reach of your arms, it doesn't matter. If you go up to somebody and you do that in your face, you invade their space, that's not good. But at the same time, if somebody steps into your space and then claims that actually claims offense, then that's not good either. It's kind of that respecting of boundaries.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you talk about your values. We obviously share two values, freedom and fun, which I'm not surprised at all. But yeah, that point as well about we pick values which we pick. I think we either pick generic values, so honesty and integrity. It's like, I don't think they're values. I think that should be a given. That should be a given. I know I'm saying that from probably a naive space, but there's values for me which I wish I had, like family. I wish family was a high value of mine, and it's not. It never comes up on things. Friend of mine, Peter, he runs a thing called the Family Business Practice, and Michelle knows him as well. Family is a huge value for his, which is probably good, seeing as he runs the Family Business Practice. But I've tried it, and it just doesn't fit for me. Yeah. But it's that kind of acceptance of that, but understanding those values and then living through them, but knowing when to kind of turn it up and when to be foot up to 11, or when to actually turn it down a little bit, and when to fit in with different people is huge. But that takes practice, and maybe that takes authenticity in itself, to know when to be authentic.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Those values, I just, again, going back to those values, when you say, like people say about integrity and honesty, how often, I don't think people are anyone's that honest and shows that much integrity all the time. I think we all have moments where we like to say it. I think it's some of those. Sometimes I think they're bullshit values, because I don't know how
bullshit values like that.
They're like, they're good. No, they're amazing things. You should be honest most of the time. And it's good to have integrity. But I don't think there's one person in the world who literally 100% lives by those values. But again, they're what we call the Hollywood showy values. Oh, these are the ones I live by. Look at me, I'm amazing. And I'm like, bollocks, do you? You fucking lie to people all the time. You're probably lying to me right now, speaking to me about it, like, and going, I'm sounding really moany and negative, aren't I? But I'm just saying, like, I think, like, I do think when it comes to values and authenticity, I think actually most people's values are very simple and they tend to reflect, I think, your experiences, aren't they? I don't have family either. Like, I have family, but I don't value family. Isn't a value I necessarily have. It was something that I thought I wanted, and I have good people around me, and I love that. And so actually, I would actually add a fourth. I would add community connection, probably, because I love my mates. But family, no, it's not for me either. Other ones I probably should have. I don't have. I did think significance was one for a while. But then I just realised that was just me running away from the wounds I had of not feeling significant when I was a kid. And actually, by seeking significance again externally from the world around me, which we do need people around us before anyone starts saying, like, oh, you don't need others to make yourself happy. Well, yes, we do. So that anyone who tells you that's fucking lying. But like, I was seeking, rather than acceptance of myself, I was seeking significance elsewhere through my career, through my speaking. And I just realised actually, none of it matters. So actually, that was one I played around with, but it just comes back to those freedom, health, and fun and connection for me. Connection. Well, maybe connection's a bit of a wanky word, but
I see connection.
Something just with mates. Hang around my mates. Can I just call it that? Just hang around my mates. But which is connection, isn't it? But yeah.
You see, this is the beautiful thing about values, and we'll probably give people some advice on what to do to be more authentic at the end of this episode. Because, the influencers that we are seeking significance from the world, 5-star review on whatever thing you're listening to this on, obviously. But it is really interesting. Community is one of the pillars which I talk about, community and connection, because we are as humans, we have this need to be connected to people. I think what's interesting about kind of the authenticity piece is if you're connected to a group of people who don't share your values and you have to change the way that you behave to fit in, that's definitely not energizing at all. I would say that the beautiful thing about the value words is that I take freedom, for example. Freedom means something different to me than it does to you. Love's another one of mine. Love, learning, freedom, and fun. Learning is about helping other people to grow and develop, but also at the same time helping me to grow and develop. So and teaching, it's got the whole kind of spectrum. But health for you could be, health could be physical health, it could be mental health, it could be emotional health, and it could be being around other people and having that kind of community and connection health as well. You can make it fit whatever you want it to do. But one of the things I would say is that if you do the work to work out your values and words come up which you're not expecting, that's cool, because it'll make you think, oh, this is interesting. But if there are words that you really want to come up, aspirational words, and they don't fret about it. Don't kind of think that you're some kind of failure because you don't have family and honesty and integrity come up to your value words. That's cool. Don't worry about it. It doesn't mean that if you have kids and if you have family that you're not a good dad or good mom or son or daughter or brother or sister. It just means that it's not something which as a word resonates with you.
And I actually think rather than, because I know that sometimes people, when you're looking at values, of these exercises and they think about, they get all these words out and they write them down. I've done it before and I didn't find it that helpful because I felt it was more like I was thinking, what should I have? Yeah.
Got one on the desk all ready to go.
What should I have? But actually, I think the best way is just to look at how you're living your life. And that's generally what they say. How, if you actually want to see what your values are, look at how you spend your time, how you live your life. And when do you feel like at your best? What sort of things do you seek in your life naturally? And those things, what do I go out to spend my time planning? I go to the gym and I exercise a lot. I always book time with my mates, having fun, whether it's going to the pub or what. And I like the freedom to do those things when I want to do them. And that's it, and as long as I've got enough money to pay my bills, I feel generally healthy and I tick all my boxes through that. And that's how I generally live my life,
So what are we going to say to people if they want to be more authentic? What are our top tips?
Don't overthink it. just do what brings you meaning and makes you happy, and just that's essentially authenticity. Don't try and be someone you're not. Don't worry about what social media says, even though that's easier said than done. You know, that'd probably be it, to be honest. Nothing really. I should probably say something in like 6 or 7 words, shouldn't I, to the point? But again, authenticity isn't that straightforward. But just, yeah, I wouldn't even, to be honest, stop trying to be authentic. And actually, that would be my advice. Stop trying to be authentic and just be.
Yeah.
That's authenticity.
There you go. I can't beat that. I can't beat that list at all. No, I love that. That was fun. That was a good chat. And yeah, we better kind of stop this episode and go and do another one.
Do it.
See you later.
See ya.
It's where I awkwardly find the button now. So you've been listening to Alex and Dave. And we couldn't actually think of a way to finish off each episode. So Alex is doing his version of Careless Whisper for your listening pleasure. But if you've enjoyed today's episode and you like Alex's musical interlude, then come and tell us. You can find us online somewhere. And if you like what we do, 5-star review would always be good. And share the love.